Good evening and welcome. Don't these days come round so quick? Unbelievable. Where does the week go? I can't see any of you because I've got no glasses on. My glasses are filthy. There's a few in the house already. Oh, there you all are. Paul Crocker first in the house, and he likes to tell everybody. First in the house. Frank Casey, good evening to you. Jeff Harraway, good evening. Gary Marriott, good evening. Tim Weston, good evening. Tracy Dodds, good evening. Now, I hope you've got a nice, cool drink. Has it been warm enough for you all? That's the main thing. What are we doing with this weather? This is not dog training weather. Good evening, terrorist. Good evening, Michael McLaughlin. Right. So, questions, fire away. First question. Sue's going to read the first question out. She's not going to read it out.
I'm waiting.
She's just laughing.
I'm waiting.
Well, what can we talk about? I can't talk about much about dog training, can we? Haven't been doing much. It's been too bloody hot. Too hot. Do you know what gets worse some weeks? I just think to myself, what can I talk about today? I got nothing in the top of my head. Come on, come up with some ideas. Come up with some ideas that you want me to talk about. No ideas. Right, we drawn a blank then. That's it. Come on then, Sue, ask me a question.
What's the same with everybody else?
You know, I'll ask everybody else a question. You know those people who like dig up fields looking for things? What are they called? Those people who dig up field looking for old relics and history in the past. Come on then, let's see who's listening. What are they called? Gary said he had Joe and Abby from Corleone talk with me for a couple of days this week. Well done. What? What are they called? No. What's the other thing? They dig. The people who dig. Archaeologists.
1,000-year-old relics.
Archaeologists, aren't they? There you go, Michael McLaughlin. Thank God for that. Right, yeah. So do you know why most women are archaeologists? Anybody have any idea why most women are archaeologists? Because they always like to dig up the past. No one got that one. That went above them, see. Honestly. Some days my brain is wasted, isn't it?
It's a good one, though.
Not even a laugh, nothing. Just like this all went quiet on me.
I laughed. I thought it was good.
Not the tables, Carlos. Good one, Chris. I get myself in trouble, couldn't I, if I'm not careful?
Not me. Not for me.
Yeah. But that's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing with dog training. Tumbleweed moment for Paul Crocker. He just didn't understand it. It went above his head, didn't it, Sue? It went above his head. Right, okay. Let's start off then. Who's ever give discipline to their dog? Who's ever give a correction? Whether it's a leash tug, whether it's a scruff, who's ever give a correction to their dog? There's a few people on here. Just yes or no, if you give a correction to your dog. Right. So we got 3. We got 3 people out of 23. We got 4 people. 5, 6, 7. Right. Okay. So you give a correction to your dog, and it's part and parcel of them learning. So that's great. So you've answered that question. Right, I'm not going to mention his name, but we have a member in the group who corrected his dog who was not listening when hunting and went after it and give the dog a scruff. That's all I can tell you because I wasn't there. I can only repeat what he said. And his dog turned and bit him and drew blood. Now, in all the years that I've been training Gundogs, I've only been bitten twice in all the years. And I've been bitten without any warning. And the dog belonged to a client, and the dog was so dominant, the dog said, "Back off. How dare you?" But once the dog had bit me, the dog never bit me again. Now, by giving dogs discipline does not turn dogs into aggressive animals. But if you allow a dog to take over and feel that it's the dominant partner, it's never been challenged, then you could be creating a problem if you've not taught that dog rules and boundaries. So, of all the people who've put yes, have you been bitten by your dog in an aggressive manner for giving the dog a correction? And Sue. So she's bit me.
No, she went good evening, Chris, and then she got me.
All right.
I forget her.
Exactly. So you'll get some people out there saying, if you scruff a dog or you use a correction on a dog, then you stand a chance of getting bitten. Now, I'm not going to mention the person's name because he hasn't said I can actually mention it, but I've not mentioned his name, so I have a right to mention it, I think. What I had to do is ask him a number of questions, and the number of questions was it hot? Was it hot? It's funny, isn't it? If a dog, his temperature is up, and this is what happens on the streets. People take dogs for walks on the streets, and they're in crowded areas, and the dog overeats. The dog can react. If a dog surrenders before correction, do you still have to give correction? It all depends on the misdemeanor, doesn't it, really? Sometimes a movement towards the dog can be enough, Denver. But what I'm talking about is by grabbing hold of a dog, some people believe that you will make a dog aggressive. I disagree completely. And I've trained thousands and thousands of dogs, and I wouldn't be teaching people how to use correction, how to use discipline, if I thought that people were going to get bit. As simple as that. This is the reason I brought this up. It's a subject that nobody really wants to talk about. And I didn't know what to talk about tonight. So I just thought, right, okay, that was on the top of my head. Shall we talk about that subject? Now, I need the dog to back off. Now, what the person said, good evening, Peter Piper. Yeah, so Jeff said no, but I had to stop the growling. Yep. The growling is a sign that it's escalating. If you allow the growling, some people say, oh, the sign of growling is a warning to back off. If you back off with growling, you'll find the dog will go in, and next minute, the dog is biting. It's really important. If disciplining a dog turned a dog into a coward or a fighter because you've cornered it, then you're not disciplining the dog right, are you? And if we don't explain to people how we discipline dogs and when we discipline dogs, but the thing is, it's like rough and tumble, isn't it? If you can play games with your dog and rough and tumble, the dog learns trust. But my dogs, every dog I've ever disciplined would back off because they see me as the leader. But what I don't do, I don't put them in a situation where they have to come out fighting. I always give them a way out. I always give them a way out. Weakness draws aggression. Yeah, it does. It does. And people don't realize, but it's one of them subjects that nobody wants to talk about because you've got dog trainers out there saying, oh, I mean, I shared one, and you guys know what, you people in the group know who I'm talking about. I shared a live chat, a sit down live chat, where he says that he doesn't believe in food-based training, bribery, and yet he uses food bowls with food in, and puts them at the end of the kennel and makes the dog go up the end of the kennel. Hang on, that's food-based training, isn't it? Call me an idiot, or is that food-based training? Is that bribery? You're pushing the dog onto the food, using the food as a motivator. So you're using food, aren't you? How can you then turn around and say, we don't use food to teach dogs, we don't train dogs with food, when you've actually got videos up on the internet and you talk about using food bowls? Well, Thicko comes to mind, Susan says, but I'm just too bloody polite. Right? But it's like saying, I've never punished a dog. That's why I've never been bitten. An absolute load of shite. If a dog understands how to turn off pressure and you punish the dog is not going to come up at you if it knows how to turn off pressure. But if I have a dog turn aggressive towards me or give me that indication that it wants to challenge me, I have to go in firmer to say that's unacceptable. Don't you dare. But I always give the dog a way out. And because I wasn't there, I can only guess or put a number of things together to think, well, why? So one of the things he said he did, once the dog bit him and it drew blood, he held the dog's muzzle and told the dog firmly, no, that's not acceptable, in his own words. That's what he told me. Now, holding the dog's muzzle and getting into a confrontation with the dog could have caused a bigger problem if the dog was of the nature that it was dominant and just wanted to say, back off, I'll teach you a lesson. So what did it tell me when he said he'd held the dog by the muzzle? I needed to ask the questions because I can't just come up with a brilliant answer and go, yeah, don't worry about it this time. The dog was hot. I have to ask, was it a hot day? What was the situation? And so I can only then give advice because I wasn't there. I can only give advice. And I had to be honest with him and say, it's never happened to me. And I've given a lot of dogs discipline, but I have on 2 occasions been approached in a very, very, very unpleasurable way by 2 dogs that belong to different customers in the past that said, hey, don't you freaking dare go there, fat boy. I've never had this before. And I had to say, well, I'm sorry, but this is the new rule. You're going to not challenge me. You're going to back down. And what we need that dog to do, we don't want to bully the dog into submission, but we need the pecking order to be that we are top dog. And when you say top dog doesn't go around fighting everybody, but you have to show that leadership. Now, some people will never, ever be challenged by a dog. And Jeff Arroway's dog, was a fine example. When he started growling at Jeff, straight away, I stepped in and showed disapproval to the dog for growling. Now, you'll get the idiots out there going, yeah, but that dog was giving you a warning. Now you're not going to get a warning. Now you're only going to get a bite. No, disagree. It's smoke and mirrors again. Smoke and mirrors. But you're going to get some dogs with that attitude that, hey, don't try it on with me. But only if you allow that to manifest. And that happens with children as well. I know children who've hit their parents. I know children who won't accept what their parents tell them. The discipline goes out the window. Then you've got an out of control kid and no structure. Who's going to then moderate their behavior with Game Boys, TVs, everything they want days out? Or is someone going to go, I'm going to set some rules and boundaries now for you? So the kid has more capacity to understand. The dog doesn't think on the same level. The dog thinks on a more primitive level, but that level is brilliant, because if you show leadership with gameplay, when you use your discipline, the dog will avoid the discipline. And the nice thing about it is the focus for the game comes through the gameplay, but we still use discipline. Malcolm Austin's in the house. Hi all. Hi all. I have a dog staying with me for training at the moment, and he growled at me yesterday. He won't be doing it again, and he's lying next to me as I type, and he's now my mate. Exactly. Exactly. Now, Gary, I don't know if you want to tell anybody on here. What did you do when he growled at you, Gary? Could you please tell us? What did you do? Did you throw cheese in his direction and think, I'd rather give him cheese than my finger? Anytime a dog has ever challenged me, I've had to step up to that dog. If I show fear, then that dog can become a dangerous dog. But what is not acceptable is to beat the living daylights out of dogs to show dominance. No one is suggesting that at all. This is a subject that anybody flicks onto this video, they're going to go, oh my God, he's talking about giving corrections to dogs. Giving corrections to dogs. He gave him a firm correction, says Gary. There you go. And the dog then surrendered to Gary and said, I'll be your mate. Back to that thing. I'll be your dog. Right? But it doesn't mean that you've got to do it on a regular basis. But if the dog challenges you in that way and you accept it, it's going to get worse. Now, the person who sent me the message in the group said, I said, what did the dog do when you held the muzzle? Because if the dog was a real dominant dog and that dog had fought and pulled away and snapped at him or growled at him when he held the muzzle, because technically you're clamping down on the muzzle, you're saying no, right? That can have an adverse effect if the dog is too far one way, and you could end up getting seriously bit because the dog could retaliate. But he took the chance, he did what he did, and he told me what he did, and he said no, the dog didn't growl, the dog made a slight noise, whimper, and then he let the dog go and it surrendered. That's exactly what we wanted that dog to do, surrender. But what would have happened if that dog had come up at him at that point? Because what if the dog was something physically wrong with it? What if it had a strain in its structure, and he's grabbed the dog and it's hurt the dog, and the dog's retaliated because of that? I wasn't there and I don't know. So for anybody, even with experience, to give advice, you've got to be very, very careful when you start to tell people what to do with a dog and when to do it with a dog. Because I guarantee some of these dogs that have taken over these people's houses and are in total control, if they went to scruff the dog to say, get off the settee, or don't come up at me barking and growling, don't come biting towards me, they could end up getting seriously hurt if they haven't got into the right mindset of the dog. Straight down the line, dog training, I believe there are times to correct growling. However, sometimes I think changing the dog's emotion to whatever it is making the growl can stop the problem without correction. If that makes sense. I don't get growling very often at all, because I don't let it manifest. I don't let a dog tell me to back off. Right now, I know some dogs that will growl when they're playing, They'll growl when they're on a tug toy and they're yanking on a tug toy. That's a different thing. I'm talking about gun dogs, and I do not want gun dogs growling at me or growling at anybody else or even growling at another dog. It's a sign that I want to stop. As simple as that. But I'm talking about gun dogs, and we do not want to go on a shoot and my dog don't like your dog or doesn't like the person it's standing next to or doesn't like the child they've brought and decides to growl as a warning to say, get off. At that point, that's unacceptable in my eyes. That's got to be stopped. Doesn't happen very often. None of my own dogs have ever shown me aggression. I've had to discipline dogs on the odd occasion very firmly at the right time. I've never had a dog turn on me, right, unless it's a customer's dog and it's coming for training and it's totally out of control with them. And I've had Labradors, I've had Pointers, I've had Spaniels, and I've had Cockers, Springers as well as Cockers. I've had them from customers where the dog is completely out of control. They've allowed the dog to take over completely. And I've had a number of dogs growl at me. And in no way have I ever backed off or ignored a growling dog. Never. I've addressed it. Even to the point that I might go in the kennel where the dog feels most secure. We stopped it in one lesson, no problem since. Exactly, Jeff. Thanks for saying that, Jeff. It's exactly that. I've gone into a kennel with a number of Labradors that have got glazed eyes, snapping like crocodiles, and growling like hell. Like I said to you, I've only been bit by 2 dogs in all the time that I've been training. But I don't back down from a dog that's showing me its teeth and growling. The dog is sending me a warning. I send the dog a warning, but that doesn't mean I go in hard on each and every dog, because each and every dog is a different situation. And sometimes I'll just go into the kennel and sit in the kennel next to the dog to show the dog that I am not fearful in any way about your temper tantrum. That's what it is. It's a spoilt kid, right? It doesn't mean I go straight in and go bang, bang, bang. Don't you do that to me. But I know once I know the dog and once I've worked with a dog, if a dog ever shows that, that's when I'd step in straight away and nip it in the butt, as they say. But with a dog that comes in the kennel, there could be a number of reasons why the dog is fearful or why the dog is aggressive. And fear aggression is different to aggressive dogs that just want to back you off. And you've got to work out as a dog trainer, why is the dog reacting the way the dog is? Now, the owner of this dog said the dog has never shown signs of this before. And the dog was hunting. He was hunting the dog. And the dog didn't turn on the whistle, didn't respond. So he got after it and grabbed hold of it. Or perhaps the dog didn't see him. I wasn't there. But he gave the dog a scruff, he said. It all depends. If I was there, I could have had a far better understanding, a better idea. I never give 100% guaranteed advice if I'm not there and I haven't seen that situation. But it's a subject that I think that not many people have got the bollocks to sit up and talk about it. Everybody wants to talk about, I'm a brilliant dog trainer. I can train with cheese. I can train with love and affection only. I can train positive and positive only because I was bullied at school. I don't want to bully a dog. I've never heard such shit in my life. I've never heard such shit in my life. I was bullied. I was bullied through my life at certain stages because of my dyslexia. Does that make me an anti-bully or does that make me a bully? Because a lot of people become bullies if they've been bullied. Love treats and fairy farts. Exactly. But how can you follow a trainer? How can you honestly follow a trainer who tells you everything can be done with affection? How? Show me one trainer. Tell me about, just name one trainer that you follow, and well, you wouldn't be following anybody else, would you? If there was one trainer out there who did nothing but affection and created brilliant dogs. I'm not talking about, it's amazing. If you train your own dogs, very seldom do you actually have to use firm discipline, because your persona in itself shows that dog that you're in charge, you're confident. And a dog that's confident will follow a confident person. A dog that is insecure will follow a confident person for security. But a dog that has been allowed to manifest and take over, that becomes a completely different thing. It's William, by the way. Hello, William. I thought it was straight down the line. Gameplay can sometimes change that relationship. Fear-based, I feel best to try how the dog feels, so don't feel the need to growl. It's a great subject to talk about, William, and it's a subject that other trainers don't talk about because they fear the backlash of the media or the internet, the so-called experts out there. But if you're watching videos of how to train a dog, and the trainer doesn't talk about discipline or doesn't show a correction every now and again. Now, don't get me wrong. If you see a trainer and all he's doing is shouting and screaming and running at the dog and threatening the dog, then you just walk away, don't you? It's like, oh my God, this bloke's a freaking nut job. And you see it, don't you? You see it. I like to quieten people down once they've mastered the skill of showing leadership. And sometimes they've got to show verbal, and they've got to show that authority. It doesn't mean they've got to scream and shout, but they've got to cut out those commands. And I watched 2 videos today, and one of those people is on here. I'm not sure if Tommy the Mad Scotsman's on here.
Yeah,
Tommy the Mad Scotsman's on here as well. And the other person is on here, and I put up 2 videos today in our group, so the group will know who I'm talking about. So please don't mention their names. Please don't mention their names. And I was impressed with both videos for different reasons. But first of all, a real well done for putting up the video, sending it to me and saying, there you are, Chris, that's what I'm doing. Open for criticism, open for constructive criticism, open for praise when it's due. They don't send it in looking for praise. They send it in looking for advice. Am I doing it right? And it's so easy to pick a video to pieces and go, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. But the skill set is bringing them on board, changing the mindset at the right time, and seeing an improvement. And what an improvement in both of them. And yet, one video, one of these people was saying a little bit too much verbal commands to the dog, kept repeating themselves. And if you watch the other video, the other one wasn't. But 2 completely different dogs. 2 completely different dogs. One of those dogs is biddable, wants to please. The other is headstrong, wants to challenge. You can't train those 2 dogs the same. You can use the same formats. You can move in and change the training around. But the 2 dogs are so different. And it was great to actually sit down and watch those 2 videos today and see the quality and the improvement in both videos. Not saying both videos were perfect, but without people sending in the videos, then people won't have an understanding of how different the dogs can be. And I think it's so important because I could see that both handlers, and they knew what I'm talking about, they both are enjoying themselves of the process of mastering the dog. They're both not youngsters. It's not like they're in their teens. They can run after a dog. They're having to trust the tuition they're getting to get a better dog and give them more knowledge and the more knowledge and understanding. But what was lovely is both dogs were stopping at a distance on the whistle, and both dogs were responding so much better than they were to their own handlers. I wasn't involved in those lessons. I wasn't there in the background giving advice. They'd sent those videos in. I'd looked at them and I was just so pleased. But I sat there and thought, because I did them back to back, and I thought, what a difference between each dog. One is so biddable and the other is so challenging. Swap those dogs round and the handlers would have a freaking field day and a nightmare, right? I had trouble typing to add you to WhatsApp, Chris.
I had trouble trying to add you to WhatsApp, Chris. It said you needed to accept it.
No. You came in on my WhatsApp and I've accepted it, Leanne. I think you tried to get me to come into your WhatsApp, I think, as well. I don't know. I left that, but I can do if you want to. But the problem is my little brain can only take up so much internet stuff. It's old and new don't go together, they reckon, don't they?
That's what Kate said.
That's what Kate says. Straight down the line, dog training. It's William, by the way.
But he said, and you answered it really, because he said, however, sometimes I think changing the dog's emotion to whatever is making them growl. And like you said, sometimes you have to go in because you know the dog and it's like unacceptable. But if a customer's dog comes in and it starts growling, you'll sit in the kennel with them, like to say hi.
Well, that's what I did, sir. That's what I just
So
explained that on
the
here.
dog's emotion, really, to a certain extent, to say, look, you've got no threat to your type of thing, isn't it? So, like you say, horses for courses, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not that you haven't got no threat. It's like I'm not intimidated by your actions. I don't retaliate to your actions when you first come into my kennel, because guess what? If you put me in a black hole, I might come out fighting, right? Because it's a new environment and we're all different, aren't we? Now, the thing is, if I was locked into a 5-star hotel with 3 25-year-olds, girls, right? I had to put that in there, right? Not blokes, right? Girls.
You'd be in heaven.
I might not retaliate. I might surrender. There is a difference. But to be honest with you, I might be intimidated in a black hole. Sorry, that sounds filthy. Shut up, Chris.
Well, yeah, because I mean, even you go into a different environment. You're not. Some can go in like as if they own the room. Go in like, hang on.
She's on a roll tonight, isn't she? Everyone, she's in she's on a roll, isn't she?
Dogs are the same, and so are dogs.
Bloody hell, she's getting better, isn't she? She's coming out of the shell, isn't she? She'll be doing her own show in a minute. I mean, let's take when people come here. I'm amazed how many people say, "Oh, I came and sat in the conservatory, and I've seen so many of the sit downs." Stop digging, Chris. Yeah, I was digging them. I'm trying to get myself out of it all then. Amount of people that come here and sit on because in the conservatory and go, I was hell of a nervous because I've watched the other live sit downs, and I know you put the camera on them, and I think so. If you're nervous, just say don't put the camera on. If you're nervous, don't come and be nervous. But it's true, isn't it? People line up in competition and they're a nervous wreck, and yet they can train a dog to a reasonable standard, but their thought pattern and everything goes out the window once the nerves set in. And that's exactly the same situation as the kennels. I've got some dogs that have come in the kennel and cock their leg in the yard, walk around the yard as if they own it, don't give a damn. I've had other dogs come in, They can smell other dogs, and straight away you can see fear. So let's just take dog rehoming centres, right? Let's just say dog rehoming centres, and people come round and they look at the dog and they want to get a dog, but they have to make an assessment of the dog's temperament. You won't know with some dogs for 2 weeks what that dog's temperament is, because some dogs become very reserved. Some dogs become assertive. When you take them into a new environment, it's like some people down the pub, innit? Some blokes walk around the pub like they own it. Everybody who walks in the pub, they get stared at by some local idiot who thinks he owns the pub. Does that make him hard? No. But he likes to portray he's hard. And we get it with dogs in exactly the same situation. So don't get me wrong. What William is saying is, I understand, but I do not allow a dog to growl or snap at me. There's going to be a negative for it, right? But there is the occasion where you have to give the dog a couple of days to settle in and get to know you. And I think the whole reason that in all the years that I've been lucky, I've only ever been bit twice, and I've disciplined a lot of dogs. I've used corrections on a lot of dogs and turned dogs around and handed dogs back where people are crying. They've been, haven't they? So they've been crying with the standard of the dog and how wonderful it is because I've turned it around.
It's made me cry.
It's made Sue cry, she says.
Well, I've said you'll never get that dog right. And
Yeah, that she got no faith in me. She says you'll never get that dog right. I might as well give him the freaking money back before we start, mightn't I?
Because the dog was a nutter. And I'm thinking you ain't going to get that one. And
Hear this?
see it.
Hear this? The dog was a nutter. She's running people's dogs down before they're even here. The dog's a nutter.
I have to say, nobody on the group.
Honestly, you don't know. You've left your dogs here. She's gone, that bloke's a nutter.
That dog.
Oh, right, the dog. Honestly,
nobody on the group, I have to say.
I don't know what she's been drinking. I don't know what she's been drinking. She's got me on that freaking antifreeze shit, though, isn't she? She's trying to clear out my veins. So anyway, we have talked for 37 minutes about dogs, haven't we? That's only because it was on the top of my head. I wasn't going to talk about it because I could have kept it to the group. And I thought, oh, I'm going to talk about that tonight. And then I thought, oh, no, it's on freaking Facebook. We're only going to get negative people going, oh, he's talking about discipline. Have you seen this video? Well, share it. Share it. I don't give a shit. Simple as that. I think that's the whole point, Jeff, isn't it? That is the whole point. Jeff says, thanks for the input. Appreciate the comments. Been a challenge. We will get there. And you need that sometimes. But what you don't need bullshit. You don't need, well done, Jeff, keep going. And you don't stand a chance. If that's the case, you've got to be honest with people and say, look, that's the case. Now, don't get me wrong. I've done it thousands and thousands of times. So I've seen dogs like Jeff's before. But I tell you what, I reckon Jeff's would be 1 in 10, 1 in 50, maybe, of dogs that really want to push the boundary. So has Jeff been unlucky, or is Jeff going to get a stronger bond with the dog in the long run with all the extra work he's having to put in? I don't know. Even to this day, I think I would like a more biddable dog. Me are the odd bods, Thomas. Me are the odd bods. Okay, I'll try and work that one out. Come on, Tommy, help me here.
Me are the old boss.
Me are the old boys.
I was thinking that.
That's probably what he means. But I was very impressed with both videos. Going back to those two boys, both videos, and the group know, but we didn't need to go public with it. They've been put up in Patreon. They're there for you all to see. And I guarantee one dog is 5 times easier than the other dog. 5 times easier than the other dog. And I would go as far as to say it may be 10 times easier than the other dog. But guess what? I haven't had both dogs in my hands. But I could turn both dogs into little superstars, even with the characters they've got. Because one dog you'd nurture, and the other you'd show the discipline at the right moment and get the dog to surrender to you, but want to play the game. And without the gameplay, neither dog would be at the stage they are without the gameplay. They're living for the gameplay. And that's more important in those videos than discipline alone would get you nowhere with both those dogs. With any dog, discipline alone. You have to give the dog something to live for. And what we give the dog to live for is gameplay. And that's the most important part of understanding that discipline is a really important part of dog training that no one really wants to talk about. Everybody wants to talk about the positive, the good things the dog enjoys. And while I know it's important, they're missing out on the most important thing that people fear to talk about, and that's correction. And I take me hat off to, I don't know, 15 of you who said, yes, you've used discipline when I asked you, have you used discipline? And I take me hat off to you for saying the truth. You've not been bit because you've been using discipline. So what we've done today, we've killed some unicorns. They've just popped and disappeared. We've got unicorns on here going, oh, no, you don't use discipline. The dog will bite you. The dog will fear you. I guarantee no is more powerful than yes. No teaches them to fully enjoy the yes. Oh, I love Jaybird dog training. I love that. I love that. That's like listening to Bruce Lee, isn't it? Go with the water, not against the water. Gameplay and interaction with the owner and handler will build a lasting bond. Exactly, Gary. Exactly. And they don't understand that because they've got that mental block that anybody who uses discipline is abusive. Anybody who uses correction is abusive. And that's the whole point about, if you don't stand up and say it the way it is, then how the hell can people really understand? But if you can bribe a dog, we understand that, don't we? We know that. We've seen it so many times. You can bribe a dog, but bribery only goes so far. But if the dog can learn to avoid the negative and work for the positive, dogs are not stupid. They work for their own gain, don't they? I don't think your dog does it for you. I think the dog does it for itself. But you're going to make the dog think it's doing it for you. Because I think the dog is so primal, it just wants a good time. It's a bit like me. That's all I want, a good time. I don't want to have to analyze everything or regurgitate and explain why I made those comments to the wife. She says, you didn't need to speak to me like that. Like what? Like you did 3 weeks ago. Well, why didn't you tell me when I did it? What did I say? You said so, and I didn't mean it like that. I meant it like this. But it's funny how she will hold. We went on to that joke earlier, didn't we? Digging up the. I said, that was 3 weeks ago. If you told me, oh, you've upset me with that comment. Oh, I'll say, I'm sorry, darling. Didn't mean to upset you. Perhaps I took it wrong. Perhaps I said it wrong. Because I like groveling. I love groveling. Because if I don't grovel, sometimes I get bit. See how I've linked that with getting bit? Yeah. The dog can only access the fun through the handler. In a way, terrorist, you're right. But the dog can access fun without the handler if it finds it self-rewarding, but perhaps the handler don't want it to do it. So self-rewarding behavior, a dog should come back to you because it wants to, not for the treats. Yeah, the dog should come back to you because it wants to be in your company, right? And that's exactly the same as that's exactly the same as I'm going to offend a few people now. Some women like a man to be a man, not a big head, not a bully, but a man, right? In today's society, they're trying to eradicate men. They're trying to say that we come from the dinosaur era, and they're trying to wipe us out. We can't be men anymore and have manly feelings, right? Now, have we changed? Well, I have personally. Oh, hello. Heavy duty barbecue cover. How do they know I've been looking at barbecue covers? Yeah, so where was I before that rudely interrupted me?
You changed. Oh.
She's not listening to you in the background. So yeah, I've changed. I've changed because I've become more considerate.
I'm glad I wasn't drinking. I would spat it out.
I feel that I like to share the duties instead of just take over and charge ahead like a bull at a gate. Sue's been in the garden weeding again today. I've let her. She said she loves it. Why should I stop her doing something she loves? Why? It's simple. You can use treats to teach the dog what to word come here means not to bribe him. You can use treats to teach the dog. Jaybird, do you want to come alive? Do you want to do a live with me next week? Because I'm dyslexic. Would you like to do a live feed with me next week? You can use treats to teach the dog what to word come here means not to bribe him. You've lost me on that one. Perhaps Sue will tell me on that one.
The word. You can use treats to teach the dog. The word come here means not to bribe him.
Well, if you say to the dog, come here, and you give the dog a treat, aren't you bribing him? The word. You can teach treats to teach the dog what.
You can use treats to teach the dog what the word come here means not to bribe him.
Right. You could use a dummy, couldn't you? You could use a reward. It's a marker, isn't it? Really. If I could train the husband as well as my dogs, I'd be happy. Says Lynn, I'll send you my manual. Lynn, I'll send you my manual. Honestly, you'll have him eating out off your plate. Honestly, he'll be doing the dishes for you.
Stop boasting. It's only a paragraph.
He'll be putting the washing in the washing machine without any advice. Okay. Once he knows what come here means, you can tell him it's not an option anymore. There you go. There you go. But at the end of the day, I'm not saying that I don't use food, right, to strengthen a behavior. But what I don't use is I don't use excessive food all the time. It's as simple as that. Can you teach tricks with food? Yes, without fail. Can you strengthen behaviors with food? Yes, without fail. Can you overuse food? Yes, without fail. So, can you teach behaviors with discipline? Yes, without fail. Can you teach dogs to switch off with discipline? Yes. So Jay Bird's back in again. It seems like using food in training is overused and is often there to make the trainer feel they are doing something. Yeah, I definitely agree. It definitely is right that I think food is overused. Overused. It is good to put up the video to see where you go rough or right or wrong. Okay. Yeah. I've got 10 minutes left. Has anybody got any questions?
8.
Sorry?
8.
8 questions.
8 minutes left.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I thought I got 8 questions. I said, "Do you have any questions?" She says 8. And then I go, "What?" She goes, 8. I goes, 8. 8 questions. She goes, "No, 8 minutes."
You said 10 minutes.
That's why never try and understand what a woman is thinking.
Because they're always right.
No, because they don't do it very often. Love your point of view, Chris. Keep it up. Thank you, Jay Bird. Thank you. My point of view is my opinion, and it comes with experience. But guess what? You don't even have to listen to me if you don't want to. And that's the whole point, isn't it? The whole point of it is these live feeds, I sometimes come on and think, I just keep saying this every week, I'm getting worse. I don't know what to fricking talk about anymore. I've talked about every subject known to dog. I'd like to move on to come and lie on my couch as a sex therapist. I've always in the back of my mind thought, I wonder if I'd be a better sex therapist than a dog trainer. But I was thinking, perhaps some women don't like it rough. And I think that I wouldn't be able to sit down and watch somebody pouring their heart out, crying that they're not getting enough sex. I think that personally, I'd have to say, pull yourself together and get on with it. And I wouldn't have enough sympathy for some of these people who'd come and lie on my couch. I'd be a little bit too direct. So perhaps I am better off dog training. But you don't know till you should say you should never knock it till you've tried it, don't they? And what else would I really do at my age, really? What else could I do? I mean, tell me, what else could I talk about? If it's not sex, it's dog training.
Jay Bird said, in America, dogs...
Hang on. I've got a very important question here from Joe Harrison.
I was reading that one next.
What would you... see how she's argumentative as well, everybody? Do you know what? You give them an inch, they take a mile. It's no different than dog training. Give the woman an inch, she'll take a mile. I love her, really. I love her so deeply. What would you say is the point that you overuse food with a 1-year-old lab? Joe, why do you need to use food if you can use gameplay and show leadership? But don't get me wrong. I am not throwing out food as anybody uses food can't train a dog. It's the same as the idiots who say anybody who's discipline can't train a dog. It's the same as that so-called film star of the Gundog world saying he doesn't use food. Food is bribery, and yet he's using frigging bowls with food in it. There's something wrong with his head when he comes out with a statement like that. And then the other statement he came out with was about... I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to... I'll speak to my group privately about it because I'm pissing myself with laughter after listening to it. No judgment here, Tommy.
Tommy said, sorry about the spelling, Chris and Sue in group. Tommy, Mad Scotland.
No problem, Tommy.
Here.
Honestly, you should have seen me. You should have seen me a few years ago, and you wouldn't believe that even though I can't spell, sometimes I can't decipher what some of you are saying, because some of you are as bad as me. But guess what? I got word spell. I write articles. I've got the confidence to do that, but I have to go over it 10 times. People don't realize the amount of work I actually do to some of these things. When I write what I feel, and that's important that you write what you feel. But at the end of the day, then I have to go over it so other people can read it. As simple as that. So Sue said there was another question. Joe, in America, dogs don't get told no, and are never corrected, and the dogs are afraid of the word.
Word.
Exactly, exactly. The same as your child, isn't it? Well, it's exactly what they were talking about, isn't it? This the Spare. Have you been watching it? The saga. He's in court, and he's saying this and he's saying that, and he's been picked on. He's been followed, and he's people wanted to write stories about him. Hang on, he's selling stories about himself. If you want to be left out of the media, don't sell stories about yourself. But if you just want to pick the stories you want on the media, but you still want the fame and fortune, and you want the lifestyle, and you want the money, then you've got to earn it, don't you? And if you said I'm coming out of royalty because I don't like the paparazzi and I don't like people talking about me, well, stop talking about yourself. Stop talking about yourself, because that it's like Princess Di. I watched a thing about Princess Di, and there was a paparazzi bloke there, and he said, "Listen, she worked the press for herself as much as the press used her and chased her, and we did chase her, and it was tragic what happened. But when she was on Dodie's boat, right, she phoned the paparazzi and said, 'Get off at so and so bay here. I'll be on the back of the boat for you to take a picture.' It made him massive, massive money. She phoned a paparazzi to say, 'Come and take a picture on the back of Dodie's boat.' Is that press intrusion, or is that manipulating the press for your own benefit? And that's exactly the same as if you come on the internet and you start putting up videos and manipulate and you edit my videos, because you could edit this conversation tonight and take out certain things and add certain things and make me sound 5 times worse than I am. I don't need to be 5 times worse than I am. Just me being me's enough. I don't need to be 5 times worse, do I? I'll be sent to San Quentin. I have this dog I am training, and he is terrified of everything. He has greatly improved. He is almost a different dog. He knows 2 things: no and get the ball. There you go, Jay. There you go. Jay Bird Dog Training. Well done. I think that it's really important that the dogs, like children, can cope with things in life that is not pleasurable. Sometimes in life, it can't all be roses and Smarties, can it? Daffodils and days out in the park. It's like you race around on your bike as a kid. Did you used to wear a helmet? Did you used to wear knee pads? No. How many times have you fallen off your bike going like crazy and your mother said, slow down, else you'll come off the bike? You do, don't you? What do? You rub yourself down, you dust yourself off, you get back on the bike
Put a plaster on your knee.
and get pedaling again, don't you? But if you sat down there and cried until mummy come and picked you up, kissed your little knee, honestly, you're making wimps, in it. And that's what we're doing with today's society. There is more kids out there, and I know there's a lot of pressure, and I know the internet is wonderful in some ways and can be terrible in others. But if you can't hack it, switch off from it and give it a break. Go out on your bike. But if you fall off, learn to get up and get home on your own. As simple as that. Because we're becoming a softer society, because everyone is scared to say, get a backbone. Stop being a baby. I treat dogs like dogs. I treat people like people. If you're nice to me, I'm going to be nice to you. But if you're not nice to me and you're trying to discredit me for what I do because I speak my mind, then that's the consequence you've got to pay if I challenge you. And I have a right to challenge you if I think you're feeding bullshit to people. And because I feel that way about training on the internet, I do on the odd occasion step out of the line and give my opinion about a trainer, the odd trainer. But I'm trying to moderate myself as best I can. And as I'm getting older, I don't think I've got the same mindset as I had 20 years ago on the internet when I first started. Because I can't be arguing with all the idiots out there. And there's plenty of them. And you're going to get plenty of them go, oh, Chris Upton's an idiot. You're going to get plenty of them say that. That's up to them. But what I'm saying is, what you see is what you get with Chris Upton. And he'll say it the way he sees it. And he says it not to offend you, but to educate you. If you were serious about me going on live feed with you, I would greatly appreciate that. I have many questions I could ask you. No problem, Jaybird Dog Training. Let's go down that road, shall we? I'll contact you. Contact me in Messenger, and we'll organise a live feed, or we'll do a live feed, and we'll put it up for the group or everyone to see. How about that? Because Chris Upton has never shied away from anybody, friend or foe. As long as it's going to be educational, let's go for it. Messenger in Facebook. Yeah, we'll try and sort that out. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Like I say, sometimes I just don't know what to talk about, and I just go off on one, don't I? Thanks for tuning in. There's only 16 of you in here tonight. I think you've all left me. Anyway, good night all, and we'll catch you next week, or members will catch you on Sunday.